With Gladiator 2 on the way, I figured it was time for me to revisit Gladiator, which obviously won Best Picture at the Academy Awards in 2001. It was released the year earlier in 2000. It's directed by Ridley Scott and it stars Russell Crowe and Joaquin Phoenix. I feel like this is probably going to be a pretty short review just because this is one of those films that has been talked about to death. You know, I'm kind of only really talking about it because I do want to go through every Best Picture Oscar winner. So with the second film just moments away, I figured get to this now, get it out of the way, so to speak. But there's not a right lot one can say about this that hasn't been said so many times before. It is an absolute classic. It's one of my favourite movies of all time. It's definitely top tier Ridley Scott. It's in his top 5 movies that he's made. You know, it's up there with Alien. It's up there with Blade Runner. It's a great period piece that kind of brought back the swords and sandal epics from absolute obscurity, death. That this kind of film was just dead. And a lot of people thought that this film was going to be dead on arrival when it came. But Scott did such an amazing job with it that, yeah, for a short time, it kind of brought back the sword and sandals epic. Now, it's quite surprising that the story to this film kind of is pretty good because they didn't even have a complete script when they were shooting it. They were kind of making this stuff up as they went. The original script was about 20 pages and a lot of it had some weird stuff in it that they just didn't think, even though it was historically accurate, didn't think it would wash with modern audiences. It would appear stupid. So they were dealing with a lot of stuff like that where it's like, okay, we're already committed to this thing, we got to get shooting, but the script ain't quite complete. So the fact that this film is pulled off with a story that is actually pretty deep, that's got a lot of great character depth and arcs to it, is pretty impressive. Russell Crowe gives a brilliant performance, still one of his best performances to be honest, one of his most iconic, and the character of Maximus Decimus Meridius is one for the ages. Absolutely iconic character, you know, like the husband to a murdered wife, father to a murdered son. That speech, absolutely iconic.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Just constant lines of dialogue that come from him because of Crowe's delivery that are just memorable. The physicality he brings to the role, the raw emotion as well, you know, the scene where he finds his wife and child and he just full on snot everywhere. It's just like, but that scene now hits me even harder as a husband, as a father. Just, yeah, like seeing that gut-wrenching reaction from him is just a brilliant piece of acting. The score from Hans Zimmer is one of the best scores of all time. It is like, aside from Danny Elfman that I'd listened to on and off for a good 10 years throughout my teenage years, primarily because I was a huge Batman fan, you know, and that kind of, and I was a huge Tim Burton fan. That kind of clued me into Danny Elfman, and he was my guy when it came to like scores, movie scores, primarily because I didn't really listen to that many other movie scores. And it was when I heard the soundtrack to Gladiator, the Hans Zimmer score for that, that was the point at which I suddenly, it wasn't just Danny Elfman to me. There was other people out there and I wanted to hear them. I wanted to find out who they were. Who were the great movie score composers? Let me find them and let me hear them. And it's since then that I have taken quite a lot of joy in listening to movie scores, to the original soundtracks. And yeah, I owe all that to Hans Zimmer, and particularly his score here for Gladiator. The world building in this film is absolutely first rate, which you would expect with Ridley Scott. He is an absolute master at building worlds, taking you to places that either no longer exist or do not exist yet. You know, you think Blade Runner and Alien, or, you know, far back in history, Kingdom of Heaven And this film is just, yeah, everywhere he takes you in this film, the period detail feels authentic, even if it isn't. You know, I know there's a lot of history buffs out there who will cry over this and point the finger over that, but as a movie fan sitting there as an audience member soaking it up, it feels authentic. I couldn't tell you if it is or not, but it feels it, and that's what's important when you're watching a movie. Now, I know they take a lot of liberties with the history here, so they've taken real characters, particularly like Marcus Aurelius and his son Commodus. They're real life characters. However, what actually happened to them in real life, completely different to what happens here. So you don't come to this for a history lesson. If that's what you're here for, you've come to the wrong film. It's not that. But I do like the fact that they anchor it within a moment in history that is real, that has elements of that historical period that are real, even if they decide to take huge liberties with the characters. Now, on the subject of Marcus Aurelius and Commodus obviously played by Joaquin Phoenix, he's the big villain of the film, and Marcus Aurelius played by Richard Harris in one of his last roles. Obviously do this and go on to do the Harry Potter films. Didn't do a right lot around this period because, quite frankly, he didn't really have that much left in him, but he's great. I love Richard Harris in this role. I think it's my favourite Richard Harris role, even though it's a supporting role, it's a small role. But there's a really crucial scene. It's probably maybe my favourite scene, to be honest, from a character standpoint. There's big action set pieces that obviously I find more entertaining, and they get the blood pumping and stuff. But just from a character standpoint, the scene between Marcus Aurelius and Commodus, when Aurelius tells Commodus that he won't be emperor, Maximus will be emperor, and Commodus starts to break down, and Marcus suddenly speaks to him as a father and says, and I just saying it now, it's a painful line, because it's like he says,
Your faults as a son is my failure as a father.
And I don't know about anyone else, but that line for me cuts real deep, because it's like it makes me sympathise or empathise with Commodus. Like, don't get me wrong, Commodus throughout this film is a scumbag. He's not a good man. He is definitely not a heroic figure. But it's all within that scene you can see why he is the way he is, what may have led him down that path. Now, that's not to take away his responsibility, because I think we do live in a world that says, oh, my father did this to me, so this is why I'm the way I am, I can't help it. We need to get away from that kind of victim mentality culture. And I think there's certainly a lot of that going on here with Commodus. But even so, I have a lot of empathy for him in this moment. I mean, that's soon washed away when he decides to kill his father. But certainly when that line is delivered, it hits hard on Commodus's behalf, so to speak. The fact that this father acknowledges to his son, you ain't good. You're not a good man. You've got a lot of faults. I'm to blame for them, but you've got a lot of faults. And it's like the father in that circumstance taking the blame for his faults, I would imagine does absolutely nothing to assuage the feeling of absolute abandonment and just, feeling like you're nothing to your own father. Because your father's literally just admitted it. Whether he takes the blame for that or not, it's neither here nor there. All you're going to hear as a son is that you are crap and I prefer someone else over you. So I love that scene. I love the complexity of it. I love the performances by both Harris and Phoenix in that moment. I think it's a really powerful scene that sets Commodus up as a really great villain. Like, if you don't have that sequence, if you don't have that real Shakespearean kind of father-son dynamic going on there, then the character falls flat. He's just a mustache twirler, you know? But because of that scene, he becomes a really rich character. Of course, one of the biggest things about this movie is the big action set pieces, going to the Colosseum. You know, you can't do that these days. I mean, you can go to the Colosseum, but it's lost its former glory, is all I'll say on that front. It's essentially just an old building now that's crumbling. So going back there and seeing it with the, you know, thanks to the help of CGI and things like that, it's something to behold. Seeing all these gladiators come out, and chariots and swords and sandals and shields and tigers and all this crazy stuff going on, taking you into that world that is just, it's all about entertainment, you know. And there's a nice commentary there about the modern world, really, and how those at the top, the elites, will keep those on the bottom kind of subdued by just giving them entertainment. And you see that today, you know, across the board in our society. Entertainment plays such a huge part. I mean, I'm sat here talking to you because I've made a channel on YouTube in which I talk about the entertainment I watch. You know, it's like, that's how ingrained it is within us. That's how much we're so keyed into entertainment, the level of importance we place on it. And it is a distraction for a huge part. A lot of the time when I'm doing YouTube, this, that and the other, I do often think, is there really more I could be doing with my life? And that's because, you know, as this film shows us, there is a certain sense there that those at the top are clued in to what's going on, to what is needed to keep the lower classes subdued. Give them entertainment, and it'll, boom, done, job done. They'll swallow up whatever you need them to swallow, just as long as you keep them entertained. And that's actually quite a dark message, really, when you apply it to today, and you realise just how much it applies to today. Kind of makes you want to rethink your life, especially when you get the what we do in life echoes in eternity line. You know, this whole notion about making your life count for something, no matter what your circumstances are, doing the best with what you've got, where you're at, and never giving up on notions such as truth and justice and things like that. So yeah, it's quite a deep film in that regard for what is essentially just your big, you know, Hollywood blockbuster action epic. Lots of really great supporting turns as well, little bit parts like Connie Nielsen, who obviously is coming back for the sequel, Oliver Reed in his final role, Jimon Hyun-soo, that guy again, his name I can never pronounce, Derek Jacobi. All of these people are just like really great actors, and they just bring, again, a level of authenticity to these roles, despite the fact that none of them are speaking in, you know, like the tongue or the accents or whatever that they would be back then. But like, I know for the sequel, there's been a bit of a uproar about Denzel Washington said he's not doing an accent, because I don't care, to be honest. I don't really care what his reasons are. I agree with him. It's like the one. If you get one actor doing an accent or trying to do that authentic thing, then they all have to do it. So either all do it or nobody does it. But yeah, when you got a bunch of Americans running around with swords, and you just have to buy the reality of the world that's been set up and forget the fact that this isn't meant to be, you know, a history lesson. That stuff doesn't bother me. You know, here in the first film, we've got Brits, we've got Australians, we've got Americans. It's just whatever, it's fine. The story that's being told is a really good one with great characters, and all of these people. There's not a single bum note. There's not a single actor or actress in this film where I think, oh, could have done better there. No, they're all great. So yeah, definitely a worthy Best Picture Oscar winner for my money. I know there'll be some out there that don't, and they'll just kind of, their criticisms will probably be something along the lines that it's just populist entertainment. I don't think that just because something is populist entertainment, that inherently makes it bad. I think it is a particular kind of entertainment, and you either do it well or you don't. And in this instance, they do it very well indeed. So yeah, there's nothing, like, to me, that's That's a really lazy criticism, I would say. So for me, yeah, absolutely deserving of Best Picture. Certainly a nomination, if not the win. Definitely a case to be made for Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. But I know that did pick up the award for Best Film in a Foreign Language. Probably at a time when that was used as a way to not give the Best Picture award to the film in a foreign language. But yeah, either way, absolutely great film. But what about you? What do you think of Gladiator? And are you looking forward to the sequel? I've got to say, I was skeptical at first. I've seen a few of the trailers, and I can't help but have a slight tinge of excitement about it. I don't know if I'm setting myself up for a fall, but we'll see. Colour me intrigued, colour me excited. But what about you? Are you looking forward to Gladiator 2? And what do you think of this original? Leave your comments down below. Thank you for watching this review, and until next time, crack in.